Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. Hello. How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful week. I just today re-listened to the conversation I had with Justine Curran. This happened a few months back. And so listening to this today felt like something new. And I got to tell you, I was lit the hell up listening to this thing. So excited for our conversation, but then just the podcast in general and what we're going to do with this thing. And when I say we, I don't just mean myself, but you are included in that, because I know you're going to help me drive this thing when I hear from you in the iTunes review tab or in our Facebook group. And all in all, this is just a really wonderful conversation to listen to from start to finish, even though it is a bit lengthy, because it's packed with so many stories and lessons learned and things that I know you're going to love. We cover first, we start with Justine's journey up until now. We talk about the moment that changed her path after spending so much time basically being a client pleaser or a people pleaser, or as I like to call it, in order taker mode. And then we talk about when she started to really understand who she was as a photographer, how she shaped her business to allow her to be more of that, including the client communication things that needed to happen in order to make that happen for her to show up as the way that she wanted to show up. And then we talk about the creative side. We get into Justine as an artist and talk about her point of view around family connection, which is not just like a buzzwordy thing. It's like something that she really lives and breathes, not just in her work and in her brand messaging, but it is truly her family model at home. And then, if that's not enough, she talks about the iconic photo that she submitted, and you've got to get the mini mag for this thing, because I'd never see what she feels from this picture without her backstory. I mean, the photo is beautiful. It is one of those photos that I think that I would see on social media and it would get rave reviews because it's a beautiful moment. But how she feels around that is different than what you just initially see. So it's a great story. And then I ask her about her unexpected composition, because she really pushes the limits with composition, and she talks about how she navigates that, how she feels around invading space when she's photographing her clients, how she warms up her clients. And I'm just going to stop talking so you can start listening, because we literally cover so much stuff in here. You are definitely going to want the mini mag for this episode. And to get it, all you have to do is go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast. Look for episode 6 and then download it inside of there, or text the phrase 006 treat, that's TREAT, to the number 44222, and I can get it to you that way as well. But anyway, enjoy listening. Justine, welcome to the Intentional Documentary podcast. I'm so excited to be talking with you, and I have no doubt that our listeners are going to relate to you really well. One of the reasons I wanted you on here is because you have this big heart around family connection, and we're going to talk about that and a bunch of other stuff. But real quick, before we get into a real deep conversation, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are as a photographer, but also outside of your photography life.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't know, what would you like to know about myself? It's so hard to define myself, but I'm 28 years old and I've been raised in Sydney, Australia. And I've always had a passion for creativity in some way or another. I always, was illustrating cartoon characters and things like that growing up. And I did some photography classes in school. My nan, she was a photographer. But yeah, nothing. Yeah, she was one of those, school portrait photographers for a long time, and I used to always be her test subject, actually. Yeah. So and I met my husband when I was 16 years old, which is crazy. So we kind of dived into life pretty hard and fast, actually. So my daughter was born when I was 21.
Okay.
And I had this need to still be creative. I didn't go back into work straight away, and I was fascinated with her. She completely changed my world, and I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want her to change. I always just thought she was so perfect the way she was at the time, and I was photographing her like mad, and I wanted to know how to be better. And that's how kind of like my passion started with photography. Yeah. My husband had bought me my first camera before she was born, actually, and I used to take it on our trips. We went for a really big holiday around New Zealand, and I documented that like crazy. I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to be able to look back on our time together and what we did. And I always feel that documentary, in hindsight, was always quite very natural to me. It was something that I just like to do. I used to just photograph things that I observed and found interesting at the time. Yeah, I had a little Kodak camera when I was a teenager, and I was, like the ones with the film.
Heck yeah, those are the best.
The little disposable ones, yeah. And I used to, my siblings were quite young; they were toddlers at the time as well, and I used to just photograph them doing the strangest things. Like one photo I remember I don't even know if I have it now, but my sister was just pushing and smearing her face into the springs, between the springs of the trampoline, and I was underneath photographing her.
Cool.
And the neighbour's dog, they had a Malamute who was enormous, and he could always just peek his eyes over the top of the fence, and you just see these little panda eyes. And yeah, so I used to just do like strange little things like that, and my mum loved it.
But not so strange, because it's like such unique little things that you are seeing through your own personal lens, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And when I had Abby, I tried copying all the things that I saw on Pinterest, and
been there myself.
Failed horribly in so many of them. Some were pretty cute, but I remember just getting frustrated with it as well, and trying to be something that I wasn't. And
so were you taking on clients when you were trying to fit in and be more like everyone else at that time, or was this more like in your personal shooting?
Not at first. I was purely doing it just to photograph my daughter, and I had friends that had babies at the same time, and they'd ask me, because I had this camera at home, well, can you try and do this and that? And it was more just for just experimentation and seeing what we could do. And I just didn't enjoy it as much, I suppose. I was like, oh, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And so that's where it kind of started. I just purely liked to photograph my daughter doing the things that she liked doing, and even just using my iPhone a lot, majority of the time. And like when she was a toddler, just like her quirky smiles, when she would try and crawl at me,
Mm-hmm.
how she would reach into we had a bucket of water out in the backyard for the dog, and she would never leave it alone and always be playing with it in the summer. Just things like that. That was just around the home,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of just, when I, started developing my skills and really thought, oh, hey, I want to do this for other people, because I had a lot of friends and family starting to ask me as well. When I first started taking on clients, I was trying to people please a lot, and I had the requests of, I want to do some props and things like that, and I would just I was giving into it and trying to make people happy, and I wasn't really quite back in that time I didn't know really what I was doing and what I wanted and the path that I was taking in this journey.
You're still exploring yourself.
I was just exploring myself, and then I just had this epitome moment where I was talking with a friend, that I didn't actually have to do it, and I just I was like, oh yeah, you know what, I don't have to do it, and I'm just gonna do it the way that I want to do it, and that's basically what I've been doing ever since. I get inspired a lot, by other things that I see, or inspired by the moments, the phase in our life, or I get really excited about something that we're doing. Like, for example, we're doing our first camping trip in the next week, which I'll be taking my camera a lot, and I'm so excited to photograph that, because that's something that I really want to remember. So it's pretty cool to kind of reflect on how it all started and where I am now.
Where you are now. Yeah, it sounds like I haven't seen your very early work, but it sounds like you and I have had pretty similar journeys. I remember, I call it like getting off of order taker mode and becoming more of the chef in your business rather than the order taker, because
exactly, yes,
like when you are more like shooting like just from your own skin and with your own confidence, like the work is so different. I want to pivot back. I would love to know, and I think our listeners would love to know, like, first of all, because I can totally relate, like that must have been like super liberating when you realize like, oh, I don't have to do what I see everybody else doing. I can do what I want to do. What did you start doing differently in your business in terms of how you approached, say, marketing and just trying to get clients that allowed you to be you rather than requesting things that you didn't want to do anymore?
It was definitely a process. It didn't happen overnight, because it was definitely a mix of marketing and confidence and being sure of what I wanted, and being confident and learning how to speak to people and how to communicate with people as well. So I think that the very first step that I did take was take any of those kinds of photos off my website. I didn't want to show anything like that. And I then just started working on how I was communicating to my audience. So I was displaying photos, that portrayed, the kind of work that I wanted to produce for families. A lot of it was my own at first. And, I was trying to, in the beginning, just try and pitch that idea to people. So, right down to the words on my website, to start using a client guide where I just didn't have pricing on it. I had, a lot of content about how and why.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a process. And I still I still had clients that, would book me in, and then, I had this one girl who was completely down for documentary session, but when I got there, she was having like a best friend session. She had a bag full of flowers and props, and you
like,
know,
surprise.
yeah, surprise, and completely threw me off. And in hindsight, I realized my errors, that I hadn't communicated well enough for her to completely understand. If I had have, then she wouldn't have turned up with those things in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And during that session, I lost my confidence. I didn't, just be open and honest with her and say, hey, this is not what we're here for. So, definitely it's been a huge learning curve, being able to, learning how to communicate is the very essential thing.
Yeah, if people could see me, I'm like practically throwing my hands up over here, because I'm like, yes, I feel like I see a lot of people blaming the clients and blaming the situation when something isn't totally documentary, or totally like where the clients have let their guard down and allowing the photographer to come in and shoot the way that they want to shoot. And I love what you said about how if I would have communicated differently, then she wouldn't have had those flowers in the first place. And I love that you have are going with that mindset of, okay, this happened. Like, how did this happen? What can I do differently to make it different? And I think that is so huge. And I hope that everybody listening really pays attention.
And you know what? I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes, and I, go, I don't want to do that again. And how can I do it differently to make sure it doesn't? Or how can I better the experience for my clients? So at the moment, I am making a whole new guide, which is going to be a welcome guide. So I've got, my client guide, which is selling and communicating and pitching about what I can do for them. And, I'm now making this next guide for the next step, to bring them step by step through every process, where I can refer them back to and make sure that there's no miscommunication, that they're getting, exactly what's going to happen, and understand the why. And from the consultation to the preparation of the session and the questionnaire that I do, right through to when I reveal the photos to them and the sales session, I want to make sure that they get it and they understand it absolutely, fully, completely. So, I'm constantly evolving and making sure how can I make this experience better for them.
Yeah. Are you combining? So it sounds like this guide is really all about the process from start to finish, like super easy for them to reference back to. Are you also doing like phone calls or emails? Like, what other kind of communication do you think is working for you when it comes to working with your clients and setting their expectations, or not even expectations, even though that's part of it, but helping them feel ready for this session and fully comfortable? Because your photos are so intimate and so connected. What are you doing in your communication that allows them to feel like they can just sink into being themselves during your time together?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with. So I like to do phone calls. I would love to do a face-to-face consultation, but the honest truth is it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
My clientele are mothers and they've got 3 kids and a newborn, or life is chaotic and they don't want to come in just to do a consultation. They some are committed to doing that, but sometimes it's hard to find the time, especially my clients aren't always living close by either, so that's not a possibility. So I've got to make sure that I've got all these different cross-referencing of communication and make sure that they get it. So a phone call or by email, talking about, pitching the idea of what I can do for them. Then moving on to the process, I have a questionnaire where I get to know them. I get to understand the dynamics of the family. And during that process, the answers that they give me an understanding of what exactly is important to them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're talking about, the family tree and they're including their pets, I know that their pets actually really mean something to them for them to, put them in the answer. Not everyone will say, oh, I've got fur babies, but they do have dogs. So you've got to kind of read between the lines. What are they actually saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. And in that process, I will kind of have this brainstorm about it and figure out almost like a timeline of things that we can discuss and go over during my time when I stay with them at their home or whatever it is that I'm doing for them. And another part is still communicating during the session. I'm not this big black spot in the room while they're trying to get on with their crap during the day. It's, I'm trying to get them to engage with me and feel comfortable with me as well. And talk about things as well. So a lot of the sessions, especially, mums with newborns, we're just hanging out at home. We have tea and lunch, and we talk about breastfeeding and birth, and we have really in-depth conversations where they feel open enough to talk to me. And it's during those conversations where they're doing the practical, everyday things that I'm getting these expressions because they're feeling comfortable with me, they're talking, and they're relaxed. So, it's a mix. It's a mix of not being directive with how it goes, but the preparation up to the session, understanding what the focus is of the day, rather than just turning up and just seeing how it all falls out. You still need to have a basic setup and timeline of the events that are going to happen during that time I'm there, so we can focus on them. But I don't say, okay, well, let's sit up on the bed and do tickle time or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're pretty similar, I think, in our approach. And it seems like, for me anyway, and I want to know if you agree, that having the questionnaires allows you to understand who they are. And for me, it allows me to do a few things. It allows me to just watch for things that I otherwise may not see the way that they would see. And it allows me to, it almost, like I use, when I'm talking to my clients, I don't really say that I would set a timeline, but I just am saying, these are the things that I see are important to you. These are the things I'm going to look for, without promising them any one type of image. And I feel like just having that conversation, because this is different than an event like weddings, like you're there in their space, there's not a lot going on. So it's like their focus is on the camera. But when you have that conversation, it gives them almost like the permission slip to just be themselves. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? At least that's my experience. Do you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes.
And plus just the added benefit of, like you said, like having the conversations while you're there, not being this silent person in the room, having those conversations, then they start to forget about the camera and just, they don't even focus on anything. They're just living. And that's when you are able to shoot whatever you want.
Exactly. And, the questionnaires that I have, like, it opens up so many different possibilities to create such an experience, like, not just sitting around at home and, doing the day-to-day things. I've, discussed with clients about going to theme parks and, it just, the possibilities are endless when you kind of open up that discussion about, what exactly is important to you right now and what are the memories that you really want to have preserved. What's your favorite thing to do with your family? Like, I don't know. I just love it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always have to be a session at home. And I know you are so big on family connection, and you even talk about using family adventures and planning adventures to create that connection for families. I love that you have that as part of your message. I was reading an interview that you did on The Realistic Mom, and one of the things that you said on there, our family is close and family connection speaks close to my heart. So I feel like everyone says that they value family connection. Like, I feel like it's almost like a buzzword, connection. But I feel like you really live and breathe it. And I feel it in the photos that you make.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. The photos that you make for your kids. And I see like how that message comes through, like in both your marketing, but also in the work that you create for your clients. And I would love to know, why do you think connection is such a big part of your heart? Like, has there been some real life experiences that you've went through that have made an impact around connection?
Yes. Yes. Very deep. So it's, I think it has come from, Abby turned me into a mother, and it kind of, I had gone from a very rebellious, reckless teenager, just very angry at the world. My mother raised me as a single mom, and I had my grandparents very involved as well, and I never quite understood why my father wasn't involved in my life. I never kind of asked questions about it either, but I just kind of had this wondering. And, I fell in love very quickly as well. Quite lucky to have, met my husband when I did as well. And, we just had this really like lust for life, and we wanted to get the house, we wanted to get married and, have kids and all of that. So, when Abby did come along, I just was completely knocked off my feet with how much I freaking loved her. And, she, blew my world away. Like, it's so hard to describe. I had this biggest urge to make sure that I was going to be the best mother that I could for her. And that was my mission. How do I give her the best life possible? And I had some amazing friends and a support network with a mother's group, and I read a lot of parenting books that were connection based. And the things that, I read about how to, have a great bond with your baby, to making sure you're kind of instinctive parenting, you're being respectful of your child, and getting to know them as an individual rather as an object. And I'm not saying all parents are like that, but that was my focus. I wanted to make sure that we had this great connection. And when she was older, I didn't want to be this authoritarian person to her. So that's where my drive was, and all of just connection has been a big part of me since becoming a mother. It's crazy to actually even, like, I'm only just kind of realizing this now.
It sounds like you have, like, when you grew up and you started creating your own life as an adult, you started feeling these new feelings around connection, and it's just felt amazing, and you're keeping it going. And maybe, is it safe to say the camera almost allows you to see more connection in a different way? Like, how do you think the camera goes in?
I think it allows me to express it, really. And the key things that I learned from reading these parenting books written by psychologists was that the key thing that I took from it was, if you wanted to feel connected with the person that you love, you have to spend quality time with them. And that's where I suppose I get so much about, saying you have to spend time with your family and make great experience with them to be able to connect with them. In a kind of like the daily hustle, where, you know, you're going to from school, you know, the kids are at school and they've got things going on, and, you know, you're working, your husband's working, you kind of, you know, you're coming home together, spending time together, but it's, you know, you're kind of just trying to get through the day, and you have to make time. And, you know, my husband's learned this as well. Like, he has a busy week, and then on the weekend or sometimes in an evening, he will sit down and be on ground level with the kids and play with them. Or, you know, him and Abby will have these, like, what are they called? Like a scavenger hunt puzzle book where they have to spot things. And, you know, it's, it's about making sure you're giving them that quality time where they are, you know, feeling important. So yeah, that's where it comes from. And I have kind of, implemented that with the photography as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your whole messaging is really seamless, and it's, you really are speaking to that connection piece, not to devalue making pictures, but you are doing more than making pictures. You're really inviting your clients to have this experience that is revolving around connection, obviously. And I feel like you, like, through your message, you're, like I was saying earlier, you're inviting them to have this whole experience, this environment that allows them to connect a little bit more. Like, you're not just like, hey, let's have a photo session. Like, it's, hey, let's create, like, put some time on your calendar to spend time together, and the photos are just a bonus.
Yes.
I freaking love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about your work. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is your iconic photo. And for those of you listening, if you're not sure what I am talking about, I am asking my guests to submit a photo that maybe won't get a ton of love on social media, although I would argue Justine's is pretty amazing. But sometimes people are submitting just a cell phone picture. It is just something that when they look at it, like, they truly feel something deep in their soul. It's really important to them. When you guys download the mini mag, if you go to fearlessandframed.com/podcast and go to the show notes for this episode, you can see this image there. But the image that I'm looking at, just to give you a sneak peek verbally, is I just see a man laying on the couch and this cute little baby laying on the couch. And it's like they are mirroring each other, because the baby has baby arms up by the head and the man has his arm up over his head. So Justine, tell us about this image and why it's important to you and what you see and feel when you look at it.
Well, this image purely happened by chance. I know that composition-wise, their arms, like, they're doing the exact same thing, and it's super cute. But I had just walked through the door. I had been out on a session, and my husband was watching my toddler, who I think he was about 12 months at the time. And, you know, they were just crashed out on the couch. And I thought I'd have to take a photo of this. And yeah, although it's a little dark, there's not a lot happening there. It's very simplistic. It really does speak a lot to me, because when we were raising Abby, when she was little, you know, I had that drive to just, you know, be this perfect mother that I kind of not overkilled it, but, you know, was so willing to do it all myself. I kind of forgot about my husband. And, you know, I think, you know, being new parents, it's like, it is so kind of like world shattering. You know, you have to find your identity again. You know, who are you? And, you know, what are your roles as a parent? And I think men especially find that so tough. And, you know, when Abby was a toddler, he had longer hours. He had to work a lot more as well. So, you know, Abby became so accustomed to me doing all of the parenting that it became really hard for us, because he didn't quite know how, like, he wanted to comfort her and wanted to do things for her, but he didn't quite know how to when she was so used to me that she'd just come to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, when she was like between 12 and 2 years old, it was really hard. I couldn't go to the shops by myself. She, you know, would be hysterical. I want to come, Mum, I want to come. So, you know, when we decided to fall pregnant again, we kind of vowed to each other that, you know, I wasn't going to take so much control and he was going to put in more effort, kind of thing. And, you know, we were very conscious second time round to kind of just let him be, let him sleep. He doesn't always have to be on our chest. And, you know, and those times where it was a long night and he was crying and crying and crying, and instead of just pushing through, I'd go, you know what, I need a break. And I would allow myself to have a break. You know, being a perfect mother doesn't mean you have to be present 24/7. That was a big learning moment for me. And, you know, handed the reins over to him. And I said, you figure it out, you find out what works for you, and, you know, let myself have a break. And he did. And, you know, it amazes me that I was still able to continue on my photography, that I was able to, you know, still go out and all I would have to do was just express some milk for him, and he could do this. And, you know, one thing I never realized, and it's so easy for men, is that you forget that they like feeling needed too. And so, you know, this image, like, it speaks so much to me because it just reminds me so much of that, of how much we've grown through our parenting journey. And, you know, how, you know, this time around he's able to kind of satisfy that need of being able to be the nurturer, you know, and not just the fun guy that you can play with. So, coming home and seeing them crashed out like that, you know, just wouldn't have happened when Abby was a toddler. So, it was just a beautiful moment for me, you know, and that's why it's really special.
Yeah. Now that you've explained it, it totally sinks in how you look at this. Like, you guys have made it to this whole new level in a partnership.
Yes. And that's exactly what it feels like now. You know, this tiny little human has changed the dynamic in our family so much, and it's so cool. You know, me and my husband feel so much more like a team now, and which is really crazy. It's been so good for our relationship. And Abby now has this little playmate that she's always wanted, and it's just, it's super cool. It's a whole new level of parenthood. It's cool.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to pivot again. I love that story. And I want, for everybody listening, I want you to just think about, especially if you go grab the mini mag that goes with this episode so you can actually see this image. It is so important to express these backstories behind the image, because as you heard when I started describing this image to you, I just see a cute baby and a handsome man sleeping, and the way that it is compositionally framed is beautiful. But from hearing Justine speak, you can see how there's so much more to the story than just what you see on the surface of the picture. And in terms of marketing, because I always have my marketing brain on, sharing and opening up these little bits are really going to help your clients understand how their lives fit into documentary photography. Not fit's not really the best word, but they can start to see themselves in your stories, and then it is easier for them to determine, like, yeah, I want this too. So, but anyway, back to Justine. We are going to talk about your framing and composition. This will be another thing that you'll see inside of the mini mag for those of you who download. Again, if you go to fearlessandframed.com/podcast and then go to the show notes for this episode, the framing the composition that Justine does blows me the heck away. She has this killer way of framing her image entirely intentionally, but also so unexpectedly from what you see in a lot of documentary work. And the images that really stick out to me she's shooting very up close. So Justine, I would like to know, like, how are you moving around your clients? Are you getting like really up close with them? Are you like looking for something in particular? Like, you do such an amazing job at pulling out a certain detail inside of the scene and making that totally apparent in the image. Like, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. It's such like a contingency effect. There's so many elements that come into play to make a picture the way it is. When it comes to my clients, I will have the discussion and the questionnaire that we had in mind when it comes to what moments am I meant to be focusing on. Is it the siblings relationship? Is that something that I need to be focusing on? Light. Light has the capability of adding so much depth and mood to an image as well. So I am constantly looking out for the lights, and yes, I am moving around my subjects for different composition. How is this going to look this way and that way, a different perspective? I never kind of just sit there in the one moment. I will be moving around the room at sometimes, unless I have a particular vision already about how I want an image to look with what's happening in the scene. Otherwise, yes, I am moving around. I do like a lot of negative space, and when I was 18, I did a graphic design course, and I was very interested in advertising and marketing at the time as well. And that course actually really helped develop my skills in developing an eye for negative space and using balance and composition. I think that's what's truly helped me here.
Okay.
This particular image that you were talking about with Abby over my shoulder, I already had.
Are you kidding? This is a self-portrait? I thought this must be client work or something. I didn't.
Oh no, that's me. That's me and Abby.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that's insane.
That is a self portrait. It's an intentional portrait as well.
Okay.
So I can't remember what actually brought it to mind, but we normally are very goofy and playful parents. We like mucking around and roughhousing with the kids, and that's something that we always do. And it came to me one day to document that. I can't remember the reason why, but I thought, why haven't I done that yet? And I wanted to get myself in the frame, and I did want to capture the kids jumping over me. And in this particular case, it was kind of a happy accident, because I have managed to capture me smiling in the frame.
Yeah.
In the corner there. Abby's wild hair where she's jumping, feral all over me, and her gorgeous laugh, which, is an iconic thing for me. I love her smile.
Yeah.
I just happened to take that photo with, you can see little Dante there kind of crawling up in the bed chasing after us as well. And, I was flicking through the photos, and I almost skimmed past this one. It hadn't caught my eye straight away, but then I kind of stopped and I looked at it again. I went, actually, this, even though the composition is a little weird, the cropping is a little weird, but it works freaking well. Yeah. So this is another favorite of mine too. So
I can see why. Yeah. I was like, this girl looks so much like Abby, but the composition is just amazing. I had no idea, this is like you guys. It's so freaking cool. So in terms of working with clients though, because we have this other image here where is this a wedding, or is it what kind of?
It's a vow renewal.
Vow renewal. Okay, because I could see she's a little bit more dressed up, and he's in a dress shirt as opposed to just a typical couple session. So, here you got pretty close to them. How when you're working with your clients, do you have you ever had any fears around like invading their space or anything like that? Because
all the time.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, your framing is so amazing. And I know, like, I've heard this as just as a common fear, like people don't want to invade people's space. And so I'm wondering, like, like, Abby, you just said all the time, like, do you have that fear? Like, how have you grown to just get the job done? And also, there's another question, but I've lost it. Like, I'd just love to you speak to for like, say, a session in home. Does it take you and the clients like a little bit of warm up time, or do you like jump in there and get close and just rock it out right away? Or do you feel there's like this warm up period before you are fully comfortable to get in there and make these amazing images?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to warm it up with the pre-consultation, and we do touch base on the type of images that we're going to take. For women that have newborn babies, I will always ask, do you want breastfeeding photos? Are you breastfeeding? Do you plan on breastfeeding? Like, is this an important moment for you? Like, you have to talk about the intimacy level that you want to go to beforehand. You can't just kind of throw that in their face and go, okay, well, let's go there. You need to talk about that beforehand. And then when I, rock up to a session, I normally just to like have a quick 5 to 10 minute chat, whether it's starting with small talk and then, talking about other things, have a cuppa and just kind of loosen up a little and get them to relax. I always find that they're a little bit more, they can be, for those that are particularly nervous, will be a little bit more uptight, and you can see they're like terrified almost.
Yeah, in the beginning.
In the beginning. And then my sessions can last between, 2 to 4 hours. I've had a 6-hour session, but normally after the first hour, they're starting to loosen up. So, it's definitely a process. I had this wonderful icebreaker, at my expense once I had an extended family session, and they were having this family barbecue and this gathering, and they'd given me the address to turn up to. And I had turned up to this house, and what I didn't realize when I had turned up to the house was it was 2 different streets on the same stretch of road. And I had turned up to, it was like number 11, but it was the wrong street, even though it was on the same road. So I'm knocking on the door and no one's answering the door. I'm trying to call, no one's answering because everyone's busy, with the gathering and, getting everything ready. And I thought I'll just wait at the front. But I had noticed there was these 2 French doors wide open at the front of the house. Thought, no, I'm not going to just, walk in. I'll wait. And then I was waiting a couple of minutes, couldn't get hold of anyone. And I thought, maybe I'll just have a peek in through the doors. And I had my camera in my hand and I peeked through the doors, and there was this poor woman there sitting on her bed, wrapped in a towel, fresh out of a shower. And I was like, I'm here for the family gathering. I'm the photographer. And she's like, family gathering? And I was like, oh God, I've turned up to the wrong house. I'm so sorry. I'm backing away right now. I was thinking, and in my head, I'm like, I've got a camera in my hand and I've just turned up to this woman's house. I'm like, back away. So I got back in my car and I managed to get hold of the family member who had organized it. And she's like, oh, no, it's, up the road. And then I got to the right house, and I just had to give this big sigh of relief. And I told them what had just happened, and it was so funny. Like, I was laughing so hard at myself, and it got all of them laughing, and it was just such a good icebreaker. And it was just really set a really good mood for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, because right off the bat, they see you as equal, as human, not just a photographer. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh,
exactly. That's hysterical. So I'm going to just ask we're going to pivot back to business real quick. And then I think I've just got one more question after that. So it seems like you are always incredibly like rocking client sessions. Like you are always have something going on. What do you think is really attributed to that in your business? It seems like you are pretty steady with your work. Do you have like a bunch of different marketing channels? Would you say like what are you doing to get the clients that you're getting, would you say?
Well, I think for starters, producing work that is satisfying the needs of your clients, addressing what it is that they want, and they are emotionally connecting to the photos, so they are loving their photos that they're receiving. And in the clients that I have, it's been a slow start, but these clients have loved their photos. They've come back, or they've referred family members, like, sister-in-laws that are, pregnant and things like that. So yeah, word of mouth is very, very powerful. Someone that is asking for a photographer and has someone that they trust say, we loved this person, they will almost always use that person. Pretty certain. So, first of all, you have to make sure that you're making your current clients happy.
Yeah.
And, doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. I use a lot of like a different marketing channels, and I'm still learning. I'm still finding out what works. But each has its benefits in different ways. I've recently started learning how to use email marketing thanks to you. And, that was a huge hole in my marketing. I can't believe that I wasn't actually using that now. So, what else? I'm talking to people. I'm talking to people in networks. If I've got, Abby's dancing coming up, or we're in a park and we happen to have kids that are playing together and we're chatting and stuff. If I find it appropriate at the time, I will say, hey, I'm a photographer, and if it comes up and, I have business cards that I keep in my handbag, for that purpose. I have a business network that I'm collaborating with, and we're all kind of, cheering each other on, and have the same kind of target market that, we can refer to each other to, which really helps. That's something that I'm still working on at developing, but it's been a very good start so far. And social media, it's free.
Yeah.
It's free. So, and Instagram especially, people can stumble upon you as a happy accident, and I've had some amazing opportunities come by me with that. The vow renewal that I did, she found me on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, just, you've got to have all these different avenues. You can't rely on the one channel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It sounds like you've got, I call it, one thing, you haven't seen it yet, but I have sketched out this like infographic that I'm calling the marketing pie, and putting all of these different slices on it, which are all different channels, and just to show how they all work together. There's not one right way to get and find and get clients. It really all just sort of works together. And sometimes you will get in front of people and they're like, oh, cool, you're a photographer, but they don't really think about doing anything. They don't want to do anything, but you've left an impression, and they come back to you or circle back around years later. So sometimes you get just those people that circle back when the time is right, So one last question for you. I would love to know, and I think all of our listeners would love to know right now. I mean, I look at your work and it is amazing. I love the photos that we talked about today, some other photos that you guys will see in the mini mag. I loved the maternity session where the dad is rubbing the oil on mom's belly. Yeah. Light is just amazing there, and it's just absolutely amazing. So looking at your work, I'm just like, where else could she go? She's freaking amazing already. So for you, what are your aspirations with pushing yourself as an artist? but then also like in your business, where do you see yourself going next?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I am in a place that I'm pretty happy with in terms of the work that I'm producing. I am looking at well, I'm always looking at how can I make it better? How can I improve myself? So I will always be working on different things. I don't think I'll ever stop, but I really, what I want to focus on at the moment is I really want to get families out of the house. I want to get families, that are camping and traveling or on holidays. I really want to do that for families at the moment. So I would really like to go there with my work.
I love that.
And I just my business, I think I just want it to keep growing at the moment. I just want to keep expanding and see growth at the moment. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy. I have had thoughts about using different income streams. So I think it's just I'm trying to reflect on where is my passion. So my passion is definitely with these family connections and helping families with that. I do have a love for fashion though, so I have had thoughts about maybe using that as another income stream in terms of commercial photography.
Okay.
For fashion, particularly with children. Or teaching. So that might be in the future as well. So, teaching photographers how to do this, what I do. So, I think that's all in the far future. And I need to kind of draw out what it is that I'm passionate about and where I would like to go.
Yeah, I really love that. I love how you explain all that too, in the sense of like you're open to all these ideas. There are some things that are jumping out at you, but you're not jumping in and trying to do everything all at once. And I know just from learning business through the years, I see a lot of people who get going in their client business, and then it's like they start mentoring, they start teaching, they start doing all these different things all at once without really like refining and fine tuning because every type of client that we're working with, like, even though it sounds weird, but like we have a system that we've created. Like you have a system that starts with how you're getting in front of these people and your marketing and how you're communicating with them and your inquiries and all of that. And really like nailing that down before opening up all these other inquiries, I think is just super, super smart. So I love that you are open to new ideas, but you're not like trying to jump in and do everything all at once. I think that's brilliant.
Exactly. And especially with the teaching, I have had photographers ask me to do like one-on-one mentoring, or if I'm going to be doing workshops or things like that. And that's something like, the purpose of teaching is to give people the skills to better themselves. And I would want to make sure that I have that down perfect for people before I just throw myself into it. I want to make sure that I do the best by photographers and make sure that I'm doing what it is that is intended, rather than slapping a workshop together and making money off it. So it's something that I will think and have something thought out very carefully before just diving into it.
Yeah, it makes
I think that's the same with any process really that you're going to make.
Yeah. So tell everyone where we can find you, like your website, social media. Where do you hang out the most? I'll have all the links inside of the mini mag. So those of you listening, you don't have to write this stuff down, but where can people connect with you most?
Definitely Instagram. I post pretty regularly on Instagram, which is Justine Curran _photography. You can follow my blog. I do a lot of my client sessions. I do self-portraits and blog about my personal life as well on my website, which is justinecurran.com.au. and Facebook, which is Justine Curran Photography. And I'm updating a lot of the time. Facebook, I post a lot of my blogs and imagery and stuff. Instagram seems to be more like a personal diary with my images. And that's where I can be found. I don't use Twitter at all or anything else there.
Me neither. I do not tweet. And if anybody ever sees me tweet, it is automated, and it's only going to be like sending people to my website because it'll be a blog post. That's about it.
Yeah, I do not have time for another social media platform.
Yeah. Funny. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I had a lot of fun. I love hearing, especially like your iconic photo of your husband and your son, and just all of your thoughts around family connection. This has been so much fun for me. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you to our podcast team for making the Intentional Documentary podcast possible. Our sound editor, Lucy Burgess, Minimag designer, Jillian Adriana, and our show notes manager, Ebony Rivera. Special thank you to our episode guests for openly sharing their insight. And thank you for listening, of course. Please hit the review tab to leave a rating. I'd love to read about your favorite episodes and what has really clicked for you. And remember, the only way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Photograph freely, and I'll see you next time. Visit fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast for this episode and all past episodes, show notes, and mini mags.